purpose that refuses to back down. Everyone fights for a reason. It's that reason that drives you. Step after step after step. It's always there, pushing. Left after right after left. Unrelenting. It calls you to a city of rhythm, to the music, the sweat, the sound of the beating drums. It screams, keep moving forward. Step for legacy, for family, to inspire. Step after step after step. Into the lights, the spectacle, the show, until you step into that ring and find yourself face to face with another warrior. The only question is, who will step out of the ring a champion?
Tickets on sale now at ThrillerFightClub.com or text.
All right, we'll start right here on June the 19th, 18 days. You're going to have undisputed lightweight 135-pound champion, top rank fighter now for this one fight, a Triller Fight Cup fighter, WBC franchise, WBA Super, IBF, WBO, and Ring Magazine champion Teofimo Lopez is going to be taking on his IBF mandatory challenger, George Kambosos of Australia, June 19th, 2021, down in Miami. I haven't even heard of the Lone Depot Park before, but I'm TstreeT Controversy. Got my colleague Big J on the line. And Big J, where's this fight going to be broadcast over in Australia?
Okay, yeah, g'day mate, how you going? Hope everyone's well over there. The fight will be broadcast on Main Event.
I have it here pulled
TV,
up on the screen.
Yeah, for $29.95, which is cheap as chips compared to what they're charging for bloody Paul Gallen versus Justin Haney is twice as much. We'll get that in a second. It'll be on Sunday. Does it say the kickoff time there?
Yeah, it says Sunday, June 20th, 11 a.m. Australian. What's that? AEST mean Australian Eastern Time, right?
Yeah, Australian Eastern Time. Yep, okay. That's correct. So it'll be 10:30 Central, and it'll be about probably 9 o'clock in the morning over on the West Coast in WA.
Okay, so Sunday morning fight. So before you go on, let me just tell viewers who's on the undercard. Now, if you don't know, it was supposed to be Mike Tyson versus Holyfield. Then that fell through. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyson and Holyfield are both done with Triller. Then you were supposed to have Evander Holyfield versus Kevin McBride. That's no longer on. So now you have this here in the States, by the way. Let me tell you, it's going to be, hold on, let me go right here to tell you how much it's going to cost here in the States. And of course, I'm going to be purchasing it. It is going to be $49.95, $50 here in the States. To be honest, I think it's not going to do very well. I'm being 100% honest with you. $49.95. On the undercard, you're going to have Andy Vences versus Jono Carroll. I've talked to Jono Carroll many times before in the past. Michael Hunter, IBF mandatory heavyweight. Well, one of the IBF mandatories is going to be taking on Mike Wilson. And for Sean Cruz DeZern, former 168-pound women's WBC champion, is taking on Elaine Selderoos in a unification bout this is an undisputed women's title fight at 168 for the WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO. To be honest with you, I'm really interested in that fight. So for a boxing fan, it's a really, really good card, I can say. But for $49.95, $50, shit. So back to you, Big J. It's $30 over in Australia, Sunday, June the 20th at 11 a.m. Eastern. And what were the other times for the other time zones?
I'm just guessing here. I think it'll be 10:30 in the morning for Central, South Australia, the NT. And pretty sure WA is 2 hours behind us, so it'll be 9 a.m. in WA. But that's just a guess. I can't remember what the time differences are
So as I'm looking at the main event page here, we have it pulled up. They have Mayweather versus Paul. That's Monday for you guys at 10 a.m. That's $50. You have the UFC pay-per-view. Okay, all right. That is $54.95. That's June the 13th. And then you have Paul Gallen versus Justice Hooney. Actually, we now know, even though they haven't fixed it yet on the page, it's now Justice Hooney versus Paul Gallen, and that's going to be Wednesday.
No, it's not.
No,
let me pull you up there. It is Paul Gallen versus Justice Hooney. Paul Gallen is the A side.
Oh, okay, so that's
clear.
official. That's been taken care of. And that fight is $54.95. So let's talk about this here. Now, Kambosos, Lopez versus Kambosos is for the 135-pound Undisputed Championship. The 135-pound lightweight division is on fire. And if George Kambosos were to beat one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world and capture all of those titles, can you explain what that would mean for Australia?
Well, that would be the biggest achievement an Australian has ever done, ever. I mean, it would put everything to bed. There's only been... Now, I fact-checked myself the other day. Now, I've been saying for a while that this is the biggest opportunity an Australian's ever got, ever. That is factually untrue, so I call bullshit on myself. Back in the 2nd of February of 2002, an Australian fighter called Glenn Kelly took on Roy Jones Jr.
We have him pulled
for his
up on
undisputed lightweight titles. I don't know where the fight was, somewhere in the States. That was actually for undisputed, because there's still a bit of an argument if Teofimo is actually the undisputed champion or not. I don't think he is, because the Haney is the WBC. That's just my opinion. But plus, Roy had 6 belts where Teofimo only has 5.
Let me stop.
There was no dispute. Sorry.
Let me stop you here and go ahead and explain who Glenn Kelly was. So, as we were talking about it before we started the video, I did get a chance to watch this fight years ago. I just don't remember. It took place in 2002, February, in American Airlines Arena, where the Miami Heat currently play. Roy Jones held the WBC, WBA Super, IBF. Now, during that time, the WBO wasn't what it is right now. So, during that time, Roy Jones was undisputed champion, just like Lennox Lewis and Victor Archenia was undisputed at one point in time during that era when...
Yeah, super flyweight. Yeah.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, right now, to be undisputed, you have to have 4 belts: the WBC, WBA Super, IBF, and the WBO. Then you can go ahead and throw the Ring magazine, but that usually comes with it. But the main 4 belts you have to have. So Roy Jones was undisputed, and Glenn Kelly did get a chance to fight for all 3 of those belts, but there were also 2 other belts that I remember, and actually 3 other belts that I remember, and I forgot they even existed, were the IBA and the WBF. And he also has had the IBO, which is still hanging around. So there's 6 titles that were on the line back then, but the 3 major significant titles. But in this case, I would think that right now the Lopez Kambosos fight means more. So yes, people going to look at it differently. Well, it was 4 belts then, it was 3 belts to be undisputed then. It's no better way to explain it. Just like Lennox Lewis was the first ever undisputed British champion. But Josh Taylor, after defeating Jose Ramirez, is the first ever British undisputed of the 4-belt era. And I wish that the media and, commentators start explaining that correctly. But I'm sorry, Jay, continue. So...
Yeah, sorry, no, go on, you're going to ask something. Because basically, poor old Glenn, Roy beat the daylights out of him. It was like a kid playing with his food. Glenn really didn't put on anything special that night, and unfortunately he got, beat pretty easily by George. But my gripe is that the Australian media has done fuck all to cover this fight. And it infuriates me to think that all their focus is on a football player fighting an Olympic hopeful, right? Instead of worrying about this kid who's actually getting shots at legitimate, belts. Okay, yeah, the fight's only $30. It's only $30 because you got to remember 3 days before this, that Wednesday of that week, Haney's fighting Gallen.
Yeah.
So main event would be pretty stupid to charge $60 for that and then expect you to pay another $60 3 days down the track for Lopez. They did the same thing with Maloney and Oyo. That was only $30.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that the more significant the fight for the Australian fighter, the less it's going to cost.
Unless
so it's probably a good thing, but
unless it's a novelty fight like we see with we're not knocking Paul Gallen versus Justice Haney, as we've talked about before in the past.
We're not knocking the fighters. We're knocking the promotion, the broadcaster, for thinking that they can charge $60 for a novelty fight and $30 for an actual legitimate fight.
Yeah. So let's move on to predictions. Now, right now, of course, I have Teofimo Lopez. But there's still a question mark around George Kambosos because Teofimo, for a while, now he's been quiet for a few months, but for a while I was concerned, is this kid training? What is he doing? He's constantly in the media talking trash, but over the last few months, we have seen 2-3 months that he, seemingly has been in the gym working on his craft. In regards to George Kambosos, I don't feel that he has anything or any pop to keep Teofimo off of him. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I see him probably getting knocked down. My concern for Teofimo's side is, the weight, and if he's really going to be, with everything's going on with all the money he's been making and the newfound success, and the distractions with, his looming promotional issues, because after this fight he has to go back, or he gets put on the shelf into a buyout, God knows what. I feel that if George Kambosos were to win, it would be outside influences on Teofimo Lopez. I don't feel that both fighters at their best. I don't feel that George Kambosos can beat Teofimo Lopez. Your thoughts?
I would have to agree, but there's one fact that a lot of people are forgetting is that George Kambosos has sparred Manny Pacquiao for 250 rounds. You can't buy experience like that.
Yeah.
So, George has had a long-standing relationship with Manny Pacquiao. I think he's been his sparring partner for about 3 or 4 years or so. And George is hungry and he's focused. I have said in other previous videos that I think that was the first one we did, that I saw Lopez knocking George out in 5 rounds.
Yeah.
All right? Because once George hits him with that power, once Teofimo hits George with that power, George is going to be in trouble. Because George, to his credit, doesn't get hit a lot. So
yeah,
he's never been down. He doesn't have the power that Teofimo has. Anyone that says that he's a powerful fighter, he's quick, he's ridiculous, he's lightning fast, but he doesn't have the power. And I agree with you. I don't think he has the power to keep Teofimo off him. But as I've been saying the whole time, if the best Teofimo doesn't show up on the night, George upsets him. And as you said, there's a lot of outside factors, a lot of distractions, a lot of things that There's a lot of people probably hoping that Teofimo loses this because then they can bury him.
Yeah.
He's done it to himself. So, how easy would it be for Top Rank to throw him to the corner if he loses? So, there's a lot of factors. For George, this is just easy. Big money, big fight, nothing but training. But, if the best Teofimo rocks up, it's, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's going to be a bad night for George. And I really don't want to say that, but, you've got to put you've got to put your bloody thinking cap on and think, well, George has got a good chance, but you think at best it's 60-40, 70-30 in the favour of Teofimo.
Yeah.
And that's probably
I'm looking.
Teofimo's not going to knock him out in 1 round, but George is going to have put on the best performance of his life to get this done.
I'm looking. He just looks so small. Right now, I have the clips from the press conference pulled up, and George Kambosos. Did you notice he was wearing lifts?
Yeah, I watched a couple of British blokes do a YouTube video, and they're actually mentioning that. Because I'm looking at that video, they're going, "Fucking George is taller than Teofimo." That doesn't sound right.
No, I'm looking. These are about 3-inch lifts, mate. Wait till you see.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching them.
I did see that.
They're facing off.
Yeah, I got a good laugh at that. Yeah.
And it's and I remember looking at the Lee Selby fight and thinking like, wow, Kambosos is a lot smaller, than I thought he is.
He's only about 5'7", if that. He's not a big bloke.
Yeah, and he's got these lifts on all in. So, moving on, the winner right now. See, The 135-pound division is very, very complex. I'm going to break it down.
It's stacked as fuck, too.
Yeah, I'm going to break it down, and it's really top-heavy. I'm going to break it down the best way I can in a short period of time. So, you have Teofimo Lopez, who's the WBC franchise, WBA Super, IBF, WBO, and Ring Magazine. Right now, he's fighting his IBF mandatory. The IBF is the most strict of all of the sanctioning bodies. And guess what? George Kambosos just so happened ranked number 1 by the WBO too. So Teofimo Lopez had defeated Lomachenko to win all of those titles. Lomachenko is going to be taking on Masayoshi Nakatani in June or July. I'm pretty sure it's July. And the winner of that is going to be the WBO mandatory. You have Devin Haney, who's the WBC champion. And let's stop right there to talk about that a little bit. This past weekend, the 28th, Devin Haney defeated Jorge Linares, veteran 135-pounder. In what can be considered one of Jorge Linares', despite him losing cleanly, one of his best performances against a top-level champion of his career. So let's stop there for a little minute. And what did you think about the fight, Big J? What have you gathered so far from Haney's performance, from what you know?
Well, from what I saw, I mean, he had a good first 9 rounds, and then in the 10th he got clipped, and it was like it all turned to shit after in the 10th round. I went, what happened there? But I mean, in my opinion, I don't think he's any real threat to Teofimo. I think Teofimo would clean him up probably within 6-7 rounds. Yeah, I mean, it was a good win. Well, actually, it was a bit of a. I mean, the first 9 rounds was clear, concise. He controlled the pace, and then he got clipped. But if Teofimo hit Haney like that, it's night for Haney, because Teofimo would probably knock his bloody head off.
And that's what people, it's and in boxing, you see somebody get clipped and you wonder, like, what happens if your rival, especially if he's a power puncher like Teofimo does that to you, you're probably going to go down. So it was in round 10, he was hit with an uppercut and then a left hook. Or it may have been vice versa. I'm pretty sure it was an uppercut and a left hook. Now, Jorge Linares was throwing that combination throughout the first 9 rounds. Now, I believe it was the round before the uppercut did get through, one of them. But you started noticing those last few rounds, Devin Haney started staying in the pocket too long, and, he did a little dance going back to the corner. You saw his father. You saw Devin Haney in the corner, smiling. You can tell they were, like, buzzed and like, whoa, okay, get back to boxing. Now he was bugging in that 10th round. He was shot to shit. What I'm noticing is a lot of fans are, calling him Huggy Bear or Give Me a Hug, because he decided, not to fight, but to hold on. And in this day and age in boxing, in the social media age, they're going to hold that shit against you fans. Me, I'm like, all right, stay clear. But what happens when you run into a fighter that's not a 35-year-old Jorge Linares, that has more power than Jorge Linares? And, I still have faith in Devin Haney. But right now, I have to give the edge to Teofimo. Now, Devin Haney, I said, I mean, you'd have to give the edge, but you reckon Haney could beat Teofimo? Teofimo would knock his bloody head off. I believe, because the jury's not out yet for me. I believe that depending on what type of fight he fights, if he decides to try to move around and not box, because Devin Haney has been known to be a mover. In this Linares fight, he was there in the pocket. And I'm guessing because he's had the reputation of being boring. A lot of people expected him to stop Yorkis Gamboa, and he couldn't. So in this case, I think that he was trying to have something to prove. But I'm wondering, when it comes to boxing, as I've said before, I feel that Teofimo is the better fighter. Right now, Devin Haney can be the better boxer.
Yeah, but it wasn't his last defense of his title wasn't that flash either, was it?
No,
that was
it wasn't.
A 12-round decision that he should have. I mean, that was another veteran he should have cleaned up in 6 or 7 rounds, and he went to the cards.
Yeah, so and we know.
I have no doubt that Teofimo gets in the ring with him. That's if he gets past George. That Teofimo dealt the fucking shit out of him.
Yeah, because to be honest, let's just go ahead and say it like it is. Teofimo would put a boot in Yorkis Gamboa's ass. Teofimo wouldn't have had Gamboa go 12 rounds. He would have beat him up. Teofimo would have definitely knocked out, in my personal opinion, especially if you know Jorge Linares like I know. I mean, I've been covering him for 10 years. Teofimo would have knocked out Jorge Linares. You know, so, but right now, there's still that question mark because Teofimo, he may be undisputed, but on paper, people are not really counting it. It's like, you know, he's got to fight Devin Haney.
Exactly. Well, he's got to get past George first.
Got to get past George first.
In my book, he's not undisputed. He's not.
I can't say he is.
I can't say. Yeah. That's why I had to pull myself up on this Glenn Kelly thing and make that point. And by the way, he was the IBF mandatory too. So the IBF have been strict for they've been strict for a very, very long time. So credit to them.
Yeah.
So shout out to the IBF. They're doing good stuff. But back to our point. Yeah, I mean, Teofimo, if he gets past George, and it's most likely that he will. Sorry, George, I love you, mate, but. You know, I'm happy to be wrong. I'd love George to ring me up and tell me I'm a fuckwit and say I'm full of shit. He's going to beat the shit out of him. Be like, great, go ahead and do it, son. I'll be his number one supporter. But I think that's the main problem with this is that no one really gives George a chance, which I don't think why anyone's really covering the fight, which is bullshit. But having said that, Australians' record in America is fucking abysmal. And if we do win, we get screwed.
Yeah.
Point in case, Jeff Fennick, number 1 against Azuma Nelson, and last year, Andrew Maloney versus Franco 2.
Yeah.
So, you know, our record in America is abysmal, especially against Americans. So,
I don't know.
I can't think of one Australian fighter that's beaten an American on home soil for a world title. Ever.
Yeah. I just can't really see it. And if Teofimo wins, you know, heavy speculation that he's going to immediately move to 140 and fight Josh Taylor, you know, which makes sense because you'll have two undisputed fighters facing each other. That'll be amazing.
Even if he loses, you think he would go after Josh if he loses? Wouldn't you think he'd go after a rematch with George?
No. If he loses, I believe he'll go after the rematch with George. But if he wins, it's looking like the writing's on the wall to have two undisputed champions, one from 135 and 140, face each other. Can you imagine that? Josh Taylor with all of his gold and Teofimo Lopez with all of his gold. And right now, Devin Haney, you know, I don't see the fight happening. You know, I see that if Teofimo Lopez wins, he's moving up. If George Kambosos wins, it'll be a rematch.
A rematch. What's Tank Davis doing? Is he at 140?
Yes, no, let me tell you what Tank Davis is doing. Tank Davis, let me get back to my brief breakdown on the 135-pound division. Tank Davis is taking on Mario Barrios. That is, I forgot the exact date. Is that July? I believe it's in July for the 140-pound WBA world title against Mario Barrios. So technically, he's fighting at 140 next because his belt at 135 doesn't mean anything. You know, you have Ryan Garcia.
Has he still got his super belt at 130? Is he still 130 champ?
Yeah, it's the WBA, so they're not going to strip him. He's got that bullshit. That belt ain't going nowhere. You have Ryan Garcia. He's on leave for personal, mental health issues. You have Javier Fortuna, who is the mandatory for the WBC champion. The WBC at 135 is all messed up. Teofimo, franchise, Devin Haney as the world, Ryan Garcia as the interim, Javier Fortuna as the mandatory. Fortuna is going to be taking on Jojo Diaz, who's moving from 130 to 135. Isaac Cruz is supposed to be the next IBF mandatory after George Kambosos. Now, these fighters I'm mentioning because these are really good fighters. Like, 135 is stacked.
It is. It really is.
So,
I think the only division more stacked is 147. I think that's a fair call.
Yeah, pretty much. 147, yeah, that's it. And 118, 122 are pretty, are stacking up.
Oh, shit. Speaking of 118, how good was Anito Del Nero? How fucking good was that?
Yeah.
Good on him.
A real quick hit. Nonito Del Nero got a fourth-round knockout over Nordin Obali at 38 years old to capture the WBC, the full WBC 118-pound title. He is now definitely fully in the mix at 118 pounds and will likely be fighting the winner of John Rio Casimiro versus Guillermo Rigondeaux. So that's something to look out for, and we can talk about that later on, especially as we start getting back to what's going on with the Maloney's. But as far as Teofimo Kambosos, closing thoughts?
Well, we all know I want Kambosos to get in there and belt the face off Teofimo as much as I like the kid. I want George to beat him up, but Let's say 60-40 towards Lopez, and let's just bring the fight on because I want to see what happens. I mean, I wish the boys both good luck and good health, but I just want to see the fight personally. So, prediction 60-40 in favour of Timo, and I'm going to leave it at that. So,
I'm 80-20. For Teofimo Lopez. George Kambosos also. Listen, we got plenty of time. As I've told you guys, I'm back full time, especially as of today, and this week is Mayweather Paul fight week. So what I'm going to be doing is, we're going to be working to try to get some time with George Kambosos, and also we're going to be here for all of the fight week events, the final press conference, the weigh-in, post-fight press conference. Once again, please take your time out, like the video. This is TstreeT Controversy and Big J with FightView360.com. Please subscribe.